Captain Marvel caused a lot of controversy on its release in 2019. The film was sandwiched between the two-part conclusion to the MCU as we knew it, and had a lot of pressure on its shoulders. Not only to introduce one of the most powerful characters in that universe, but also make them vulnerable, while not detracting from their strength. This is a tightrope that directors Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck managed to walk pretty well. A Captain Marvel solo film had been in development for many years, eventually entering active development in April 2017 with Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, Lashana Lynch, Jude Law and Gregg joining the cast. As for Carol Danvers herself, Brie Larson's casting was announced a year prior at the 2016 San Diego Comic-Con.
Captain Marvel herself, Brie Larson!
DC had released their female-led superhero movie Wonder Woman 2 years prior, which received pretty good reviews.
You mean you were lying?
So, how would Marvel's venture fare? Let's find out. Brie wakes up from a dream where she was covered in Smurf blood. She lives here on Hala, the capital of Kree civilization. Without any vlogging equipment hanging around, she instead fills her time by fighting Jude Law. Unable to control her powers, she sends her mentor flying, which results in her taking a trip to see the AI that sits at the head of their society, known as the Supreme Intelligence. The conversation on the space DLR is a subtle put-down of Larson's Vias, and of women in general.
Control your impulses. Stop using this, start using this.
The head of state takes the form of the person you most admire, but Vias doesn't remember the woman she sees, having lost her memory 6 years ago when she was revived using Yon-Rog's blood. Vias and Rog are sent on a mission alongside the rest of their team, consisting of Atlas, the marksman of the team, Ron Carr, the bigger, stronger guy who fights with his fists, Gemma Chan, who would later appear in an unrelated role in The Eternals, as Minerva, a Kree sniper and member of Star Force, and Djimon Hounsou as Korath, who previously appeared in Guardians of the Galaxy. You may be wondering how Korath is here since he seemingly died in 2014's Guardians, and that's because Captain Marvel is actually set decades earlier in the mid-1990s. Star Force travel to the planet of Torfa to retrieve their spy Solar, but when they get there they quickly find themselves in the middle of a Skrull ambush, with Solar having been replaced by Ben Mendelsohn's Talos, who seizes the opportunity and abducts Vias. I've got to say, I've never really liked this sequence very much. The action isn't particularly interesting, and it's difficult to see what's going on due to the muted colour palette and dust clouds galore. Not a fan. We flash back and forth through Via's forgotten memories, which include McKenna Grace as a young Carol, who you may recognise from the leading role in the recent Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's an interesting way to do a flashback, but a bit too rushed. And there's too many examples of the sexism the character experienced in a row. It's a little heavy-handed for me, but it is a cool sequence. We pull out of those memories to see that Vias has been strapped into a mind probe sort of dealio that this film calls a mind frack, which the previous animations of look super interesting. I wonder how much of the film they animated like this. Also, why is there a burning piano during this bit? Like, was she fire on the piano or something? I don't get it. She manages to break herself free, learns that the woman in her head is called Dr. Lawson, and a frantic escape through the Skrull ship ensues. I didn't know Tarantino directed this. Vias manages to escape, but she's no ODST, and her escape pod breaks up in the air, sending her crashing through a blockbuster video. This scene has me nostalgic every time. I vividly remember when I was younger and we would go to our local every other week to rent a PS2 game, maybe a VHS, or I guess close to the end, like a DVD. God, I miss Blockbuster. Talos and 3 other Skrulls have managed to survive the ship's destruction, an event that Earth apparently managed to somehow miss, despite it being just outside our atmosphere. While they take on new forms, Vias makes contact with Star Force, just as a familiar face makes an appearance. Coulson! Samuel L. Jackson's de-aged Fury meets Viers. Larson, who had worked with Jackson on Kong Skull Island from 2017, pushed for Fury's presence in the film. And I've gotta say, I'm glad she did. Their dynamic is easily one of the best parts of the film. Their pleasant convo gets interrupted by a pretty bad shot by one of the Skrull soldiers. Viers gives chase, as does Fury and Coulson, which eventually leads to a pretty fun fight sequence with the shape-shifting alien on board a train, which most of the inside shots of were filmed on an actual moving train rather than a set. On the ground, Fury's pursuit of this mysterious woman hits a speed bump when he finds out Coulson has been temporarily replaced by a Skrull. It's during this sequence that Captain Marvel meets Stan Lee, who's busy reading the script for Mallrats, a Kevin Smith movie in which he made an appearance as a fictionalized version of himself. The Marvel title card at the intro to this film was also a tribute to Lee, who played a major part in the birth of Marvel Comics and passed away in November 2018.
Those stories have room for everyone, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or color of their skin. The only things we don't have room for are hatred, intolerance, and bigotry. In other words, Excelsior!
The train Skrull manages to escape, but Skrullson wasn't so lucky. Train Skrull never reappears after this point, so who knows, maybe they'll tie into the upcoming Secret Invasion series. Fury's eye remains thoroughly un-eye patched, as we discover that Talos has taken the place of Fury's boss, which isn't really a surprise since he's just Ben Mendelsohn. Also, Nelson Franklin is here. He's really funny in stuff like New Girl and Veep. Viers steals some dickhead's bike, which people of course were in uproar about, as if Hawkeye doesn't become a literal serial killer in Endgame. She arrives at the bar from her memory, with the help of the latest technology. Wait, is that Street Fighter 2? Here she meets up with the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., great show, once again, and they decide to partner up to try and discover more about her forgotten past on Earth. I've got to say, the de-aging they do on Fury throughout this entire film is really impressive.
Everybody calls me Fury. Not Nicholas, not Joseph, not Nick. Just Fury.
At Project Pegasus, the unlikely duo go in search of info on Dr. Lawson, bumping into a cat named Goose on the way. Goose is actually from the comics. Captain Marvel's cat in the comics is called Chewie, named after the character from the Star Wars movies. But for this new film, they've been renamed to Goose, after the character from Top Gun, in reference to Danvers' jet pilot background. Fury kinda betrays Viers when they find out Lawson is dead, and she learns from Yon-Rogg that Lawson was a Kree agent, working on a lightspeed engine in an attempt to help end the war between Skrull and Kree. Speaking of Skrulls, Fury's fake boss arrives and sets alarm bells ringing when he says something that catches his attention.
Excellent work, Nicholas.
Fury gets his ass kicked by Talos, who then gets their ass kicked by Viers, and the two make their escape, with help from Coulson! After commandeering a quad jet and flying out into the sky, they find they have a lovable stowaway. Viers finds her way to the home of an old friend, Maria Rambeau, played by Lashana Lynch, whose career has blown up recently following her appearances in the MCU and as Agent Nomi in the latest Bond movie, No Time to Die.
Do you know what time it is?
What?
Time to die.
The two reminisce, and we learn more of Viers' past, or Carol, as I'll mostly be calling her from now on. Talos shows up unannounced, and plays the team an audio recording of the day Carol lost her memory. It turns out that the Skrulls are not the cold-hearted villains the Kree made them out to be. They are instead refugees from an unjust war. And it was in fact Yon-Rogg and Gemma Chan that killed Mar-Vell, a Kree in disguise on Earth, and inadvertently gave Carol her powers after the lightspeed engine was destroyed. With the character's deep ties to jet pilots, Brie Larson spent some time actually flying in these types of planes to help learn what it actually feels like to be in those sorts of flights, and also what the people who fly them are like. With Carol, Fury, Maria, Talos, and this other sciencey Skrull now united against a common enemy, they set out, but not before Captain Marvel makes some fresh changes to her outfit. What exactly is this technology meant to be though? I assume it's so that Starforce can change their colours to better blend in with the environment or stand out with it, but how does this little girl know how to work this alien equipment? Yon-Rogg discovers Danvers' betrayal at the cost of Science Skrull's life.
The Skrull Kree war is a lie.
Aboard the quadjet, the team blast off into space with their cat in tow, or as Talos would call it,
That's a flirkin'.
A flirkin'.
Brie spent practically no time with the multiple actors who portrayed Goose due to her severe cat allergy. But that didn't stop the feline taking on a much larger role after feedback from Kevin Feige, who supposedly watched the first cut of the film and replied to the directors with the message, "More Goose." They discover an invisible space station that Mar-Vell used to create the Lightspeed engine, a device powered by the Tesseract. Canonically, its second appearance after Captain America the First Avenger, this film delivers a bit of an origin story as to how S.H.I.E.L.D. got a hold of it by its reappearance in the Avengers. But that's not all the secrets the ship holds. Hidden away inside is a group of Skrulls and Talos' family. Unfortunately, it seems it's not secret enough, as somehow Starforce managed to make their way inside. How did they get there, I hear you ask? I don't know. With our heroes captured, Carol is hooked up to their AI leader, where she has flashbacks to her standing up. She breaks free, does a cool superhero pose, frees her friends, then goes full sicko mode on Starforce and various Kree extras. It's Nerf. Or nothing. Ow! Goose has a little snack, and the group escape along with the Skrull prisoners. Gemma Chan auditions for the next Top Gun, but Lashana Lynch steals the role and, consequently, her life. Jude Law doesn't fare much better after getting shot down by a max power level Captain Marvel.
It's over 9,000!
And then, Ronan shows up. You may remember him as the villain of Guardians of the Galaxy, and while this seems sudden, we have been checking in with him throughout the film. His only purpose is to make the finale have world-ending stakes, since the film lacks the proper emotional stakes to keep us invested. Like, it looks cool, but who cares? After, for some reason, sparing his life despite killing all his minions, Ronan makes this decree.
We'll be back for the weapon.
The core.
The woman.
Cringe. Her mentor eggs her into one final fight, mano a mano, which she declines.
Prove to me you can beat me without...
Carol has nothing to prove to Rogg, and so she sends the genocidal killer back to the Kree homeworld with a message. Because, sequel. And Fury gets betrayed by someone he trusted.
Oh, motherfucking!
The team have a final meal together.
Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal?
Before they all go their separate ways. And Carol gets her old jacket back, having finally realized who she truly is, before leading the Skrulls to a new home. Coulson! Captain Marvel is a really fun movie. It's got solid performances from Larson, Lynch, Law, Lee, and other people whose surnames don't start with L. The special effects, for the most part, look really good, and honestly better than most of the recent MCU movies. The action is fun, though sometimes a little difficult to fully understand what's happening, and there's some shoot-in music later on that feels like a response to Guardians' use of popular songs. The characters are well developed and likeable, including Captain Marvel herself, though I do think we needed a bit more of who she was before getting her powers. And Goose is fucking cute as heck. There's obviously a message of female empowerment, with an overarching thread of Carol reclaiming her body and emotional strengths that gives the film's climax an empowering punch, but it never feels really forced. Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck walk that tightrope pretty well. The important thing is that for every heavy-handed moment, which knocks the momentum over, it manages to pull itself back to its feet.
How long will you play Captain Marvel for?
I don't know. Does anyone want me to do it again?
I do, Brie. I do. And I know I'm not alone, but what about you guys? What do you think of not only the film, but also Brie's portrayal of the character? Do you agree with me, or am I way off base? Seriously, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a great show. It takes a little while to get into it, but once that show is going, I think it's honestly the best thing the MCU has ever made. I highly, highly recommend it. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day and an even brighter tomorrow.